Hi, welcome back, beautiful, beloved souls. This commentary is Artemis launch, rocket or balloon. Let's actually test it. So, was the Artemis rocket a balloon? I just watched the Orion spacecraft come down into the Pacific and saw astronauts go to the med bay, recovery teams moving in. And at the same time, online, people are saying the rocket wasn't real, it was a helium balloon, and even the height, 322, is some kind of hidden code. So, instead of dismissing it, let's actually test it. Part 1 is the balloon claim. The idea is that what we're seeing isn't a real launch, but something lighter than air. Controlled, possibly staged. Now, here's where physics step in. The Space Launch System stood about 98 meters tall, which does equal 322 feet, and weighs thousands of tons when fueled, and produces enormous thrust and visible exhaust. A helium balloon does not generate thrust, does not produce a flame plume, and does not accelerate upward with force. And this is the key point. You cannot fake acceleration physics. When a rocket launches, you see a rapid increase in speed, intense vibration, sound waves hitting observers seconds later. A balloon rises slowly, quietly, drifting with the wind. Different behavior entirely. Part 2, real-world observation. This isn't just one camera angle. You've got thousands of spectators, independent footage, global tracking systems. If it were a balloon, it would behave like one. Instead, what we see is controlled, high-speed ascent and precise trajectory. That's not something a balloon can imitate. Part 3, the 322 number. Now, let's talk about the number 322, because yes, the rocket is about 98 meters tall, which converts to roughly 322 feet. So, that part is actually accurate. But here's the real question. Was that number chosen? Or does it just appear when you convert units? Engineers design rockets using metric measurements, fuel capacity, thrust, and structural limits, not symbolic numbers. So, when you convert 98 meters into feet, you naturally land around 322. The number exists, but that doesn't mean it was designed for that reason. So, the balloon theory. It sounds dramatic, but when you test it against physics, it doesn't hold up. But the real stress test isn't the launch. It's the return. Because coming back to Earth is where things get extreme. So I want to do a part 2. Mach 33. What happens to the human body? Mach 33, re-entry. Could a human actually survive this? The Orion spacecraft re-entered Earth's atmosphere at around Mach 30 to 33. That's over 30 times the speed of sound. So naturally, the question is, what would that actually do to a human? So, part 1 is what Mach 33 means. Mach 33 is roughly 40,000 kilometers per hour. At those speeds, air compresses violently. Temperatures reach thousands of degrees, and plasma forms around the spacecraft. This isn't just fast. It's turned the air into fire fast. So part 2 of our part 2 commentary, what the human body feels. Here's the key. Humans are not exposed directly to that environment. Inside the capsule, they're shielded from heat, protected from plasma, isolated from external conditions. What they actually experience is G-force. During re-entry, around 4 to 8 Gs. That's 4 to 8 times your body weight. This can cause heavy chest pressure, difficulty breathing, and disorientation. But astronauts are trained specifically for this. Part 3 of our part 2 commentary is why they survive. Survival comes down to engineering. The capsule uses a heat shield that absorbs and sheds heat. It slows down through atmospheric drag and follows a controlled re-entry path. The spacecraft takes the punishment, so the humans don't have to. Part 4, the other perspective. Now, I want to be very honest here. I did channel on this, and what came through was that humans have not gone to the moon, that the Van Allen radiation belts are a barrier, and that missions like Artemis may not be exactly what they appear. But I also hold this at the same time. Channeling is not 100% accurate. Even controlled remote viewing sits around 65%. So again, for those who don't know what happens with channeling, it's filtered through culture, belief, exposure, education, trauma, which means even what I receive has to be questioned. So, in closing, here's where we land. On the one side, physics, engineering, observable behavior. On the other, intuition, pattern recognition, and deeper questioning. And the truth, it doesn't sit comfortably in blind belief. It sits in the space where you can look at both and still ask questions. Now, before I talk final and the closing conclusion, I just want to let you know that I was a child when we watched as a class Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. Now, I've channeled, we can't go to the moon, but I want to be truthful. I don't know what I believe. I don't fall into that we did, and I don't fall into that we didn't. My standing is I don't know, because we can only know when we experience something. And I will never be an astronaut, and I'll probably in my lifetime never get on a spaceship. Not talking about the times I've been abducted, but that's a totally different story. Okay, so to conclude, because the real mystery isn't just what we're seeing, it's how we decide what to believe about it. I want to say thank you for the views, and I watched the Orion, as it's called, spacecraft return, and when it first started re-entry over Australia, it was just after 9 a.m. our time. It's now 12:34, and I watched clearly the Earth spinning, and I just want to quickly talk about that. I have been down rabbit holes with whether there's a dome, a firmament, and flat Earth, and I decided to do channeling about that. And my channeling said, we are on a sphere. And when the Orion spacecraft re-entered, you could see the Earth rotating. And I believe we live in a simulation, and the simulation says it is much easier to compute a sphere, a rotating sphere, than it is flat Earth. But like I said, we don't really know. I can't go up there, and most of you probably can't go up there. So I think the best position to be is to say, I don't know. I've had a big debate with my youngest son because I was leaning towards the belief that no, we haven't, based on my channeling, and he put forth quite a lot of good points. I argued, how could we have gone to the moon over 50 years ago when our technology in our daily life didn't represent that? But my son said a very good point. Do you not think that for NASA and for the president that they would have advanced technology? Another thing I want to discuss, I have a friend who has a client, an older gentleman than me, who was working with telecom and actually he heard the call from the president and the put through before it was actually relayed to the world. So for him, it really happened. And yeah, so Let me know, do you believe we have been to the moon? And if we did, can you please explain why or where, how we lost technology? Because Artemis 2 was completely different new technology. Okay, have a wonderful weekend. Like I said, Australia is ahead of time. So it's Saturday, the 11th of April for me. And I know a lot of people think that because it launched on April the 1st, April Fool joke. But for Australia, it was April the 2nd. So if it was a fool's joke, it was a little bit late. All right. I ask that when you drop a comment, you do so with respect. Remember, when we get to the stage where we believe something, that belief system can make us blind, and belief stops us questioning. And as always, I say on my channel, question everything, including me. All right, take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. Love, light, and blessings. Bye.